Joining me now is the former president, Donald Trump. And you know, like the rest of us, sir, it does not have to be this way. Thank you for being here. We need to fix this problem.
Well, you're right. There's never been anything like it. Nobody's seen anything like it. And we had the safest border in the history of our country 3.5 years ago. And now you look at it, and it's the worst border in the history of the world. There's never been a border where millions of people are allowed to pour into a country. And many of those people are criminals. They're releasing their jail populations from all over the world, not just South America. You know, everyone thinks it's South America, and that's bad to start off with. But all over the world. Last night, they had people from the Congo enter the country, and they lived in prisons, okay? These people are coming in from all over the world and at levels that nobody's ever seen before. It is sick. It's not even believable that somebody could think this is a positive thing. And they don't want to turn around their policies. I guess they don't want to admit they're wrong. So our crime rate goes up.
Yeah.
Venezuela, their crime rate, I don't know if you saw this stat, it just came out. Venezuela crime is down 67%. They got all their gangs out of the towns and cities. They're all living happily in the United States. I'm sure you're thrilled.
Yeah.
But they're living happily in the United States. They took their gang members, their gangs. They took their drug dealers. Everybody's being deposited into the United States. But it's not Venezuela only. It's everybody is doing this.
Isn't it?
They're emptying out their jails and their mental institutions into the United States. And these people are sick that allow this to happen. Either they're very stupid or they hate our country.
Or both.
To allow this to happen to our country, and the levels, the numbers are astronomical. And you're going to see crime at levels that nobody's ever seen before, because these make our criminals look like nice people.
Don't you find it remarkable, Mr. President, that the Biden administration, Joe Biden and all the rest, act as if they are completely helpless, can't close the border, except for the fact that they overturned something like 94 executive orders that you had in place to secure the border prior to leaving office. And they act as if we're helpless. This is the United States of America. We can close the border, can't we?
You can, as your president, you don't need any legislation. I didn't have it. I didn't need it. I just closed the border. I said it's closed. You can come into the country, but you have to come in legally. You know, we want people to come into the country. They have to come in legally. They have to be checked out. I had a policy, remain in Mexico. Now, you think that that was easy to get with Mexico? They had hundreds of thousands of people in Tijuana, which is near the border, right next to the border, and hundreds of thousands of people, and they couldn't get in until they were checked out. And many of them, I could say most of them, were not allowed into the country, and they had to go back to where they came from. And we had a very tough policy. Just think of that. Catch and release. We did catch and release, but we were, you know, in our form of catch and release that we had with, with Obama and with Biden, they released them into our country. You know, they'd catch criminals and release them into our country and say, come back in 5 years for a court case, which nobody ever came back. I had catch and release. I'd release them into Mexico, okay? They were released into Mexico, and Mexico stood it. Now Mexico, I don't know if you've seen the latest, Mexico wants $20 billion a year just to talk. And
we call that extortion, by the way.
They did everything I wanted them to do.
Yeah, we call that extortion.
I had remain in Mexico, and they were 100% okay with it. And they were because it was a negotiation. And I said, you send us a vast number of cars. You know, they stole 32% of our industry over the course of 25 years of our car manufacturing industry. They have the biggest plants. They have massive plants, and they're building more plants now. They weren't under my administration. I said, any more plants you build, we're going to tariff the hell out of the cars coming in, so you're not going to be able to do it. I'll tell you, something else is happening that a lot of people don't know. China now is building a big car plants in Mexico, very big, the biggest in the world, actually, to make cars and to send them into the United States. Now, if we got to win this election, this is the most important. When we win, if we win, I got to say if we win, because these guys, They cheat, and they did. If we could have an honest election, they would have no chance of winning. And we think we have it pretty well locked up. But they are professional thieves when it comes to elections, and you know that better than anybody. But we will put a tariff on those cars. So think of it. China's coming in, building plants in Mexico, not even in this country, in Mexico, going to make cars and going to sell those cars into the United States. But they'll be, if
let me
I
ask
win,
let me ask you something about
taxed
China.
so high that none of those cars will be coming into the United States.
Yeah, let me ask you something else
Mexico
about China.
Mexico now wants $20 billion just to sit down and talk. A year, $20 billion a year, just to sit down and talk.
Yeah.
I gave them nothing. With me, it was the exact opposite. They did whatever we wanted them to do. And
it's
what's
extortion.
happening is unbelievable.
Yeah.
So they want $20 billion a year to sit down and talk. And Biden, I think, is going to accept that.
Oh, we wouldn't.
It's crazy.
And you wouldn't. It's extortion. You know that, and so do I. I want to ask you something about China while we're on that topic, if I may. Because China is also the source for the components that create fentanyl that's brought over our border by the cartels that are dangerously in charge of our border. How do you hold China accountable for those illegal drugs flooding in, killing what, 100,000, 125,000? How do you hold China and Mexico, I guess, both accountable for all of those Americans dying and all of that poison coming into our country?
Right. They send it through the southern border. So, as I said, we had the strongest border in the history of our country. I built 571 miles of wall. We were ready to install another 200 miles. That's much more than I said I was going to build. We're ready to do another 200 miles. We had Mexico giving us a fortune in soldiers. You know, I had 28,000 soldiers, Mexican soldiers. I said, I want you to give us 28,000 soldiers. And you've heard me say it before.
Yeah.
And they gave them to me because I said, if you don't give them to me, I'm going to tax the hell out of your products coming in. So they gave them. I got 28,000 soldiers. And once the wall was built, I mean, what a difference it made. But we were going to add another 200 miles. China sends fentanyl to Mexico, and it comes through. Most of it comes through the southern border. It was slowing down tremendously under when I had it. And I met with President Xi of China, and he was all set to do it. He was going to do the death penalty in China. You know, they have a death penalty in China for drug dealers and drug manufacturers, illegal drug manufacturers. They don't have a drug problem because they have the death penalty. We don't have the death penalty. If we had the death penalty for drug dealers, you would have no drug problem, just like China, just like Singapore. You have countries that have the death penalty for drug dealers. None of them have any drug problems because the penalty is, it's the ultimate penalty, right? None of them have any problems with drugs whatsoever. China has 1.4 billion people. Now, they have a drug problem. They make drugs, and they sell them into the United States. So my deal with him was that he was going to create the death penalty for drug dealers of fentanyl, and that was going to stop. And after that horrible, disgusting result turned out with the election, where we got millions of more votes than I did the first time, millions. We got more votes than any sitting president ever got. After that happened, she reneged on the deal with the Biden people because they weren't going to force anything. They probably don't even know about the deal. But I had a deal with President Xi that he was going to, they have a very powerful death penalty over there for drug dealers. He was going to put the fentanyl makers into that category. It would have stopped it. It would have stopped it cold. But this administration, just like they did with the Abraham Accords, just like they did with everything else, they don't follow through with anything.
Don't follow through with anything. There you have it. That's clearly someone serious about putting America first. Refreshing to hear, to say the least. Now, there's more from this long conversation, almost 20 minutes. I'll be sharing more later on the program today. You don't want to miss any of that with the former President Donald Trump. Stick around on America's Voice Live. I'll be back.